Nell, the CEO of Hill House Home and founder of Hill House Home, has twins. I have twins. They're about 8 weeks apart. Hers are in October and mine are born on New Year's Eve. And we did the Series A between her twins and my twins. So it was
Whoa,
really,
she led the round between her twins being born and your twins being born.
Her term sheet got to her.
So you two women are crazy people.
Crazy people. I was like trying to give her time, and then I realized that my twins were going to come sooner than we thought.
So you had to get the term sheet out.
We got her the term sheet. I was on the way to the hospital.
CEO and co-founder.
Joe Lonsdale is the founding partner of ABC.
Palantir co-founder, Joe Lonsdale.
How does someone build a $1 billion operationally intense healthcare company, be the first investor in a popular nap dress company, and create a giant consumer brand? Let's find out from Kimmy. Really excited to have my friend and HVC business partner, Kimmy Scotti, here with me today. Kimmy, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Kimmy, you wear a lot of hats, but you identify most as a maker, someone who builds things, someone who creates things. Tell us a little bit about your background, when you first start making things.
Mm-hmm. So if you go all the way back, I think at the earliest stage, I was like 6 years old, and I made my grandmother a necklace, and she wanted it 2 inches longer. And so I calculated the cost of the beads, and I charged her for the extra 2 inches. So I think that's my first transaction as a business person. But I started my first company in high school at 15, and it took me all the way through college. So I actually built that for 7 years.
What was that company?
That was a jewelry brand. It was called Mims New York, and it sold even at Bloomingdale's. So I was in school at FIT, so I went to fashion school here in New York City. I actually sold it into both New York Bloomingdale's locations, and it was on things like the hit show Project Runway, and I had a really good time building this company because it was like, really at my core, I really like to make things with my hands. And so now I built a lot of different things, but at that early stage, it was like something at 15 I could really make sense of easily, right? The retail math is really simple. And so it's a great business to cut your teeth on.
I think of you as someone who's a creative builder. You're also a very strong leader. You're a fierce person as well, if I may say. You're friendly, but fierce. Your family's Italian. Your father was, I think, very senior in the Teamsters, which is not necessarily seen as entrepreneurial, obviously. Mm-hmm. Like where did this entrepreneurial energy come from? Where did you get this drive to build?
Yeah, so that's such a good question because I love to look at around sort of my family and my own like leadership around me growing up and try to figure out where does this make a lot of sense, because you're right, it's not I didn't look around and see a lot of entrepreneurial behavior. When I think about my mom, and I was just having this conversation with her recently, she's an Italian immigrant. She's born in southern Italy, moved here as a child, and she'll talk to me even now about struggling to put food on the table for me and my sister when we were growing up, and then later for my 2 stepbrothers as well. And I'm so lucky to be raising my kids in like such complete privilege, right? I never think about putting food on the table for them. But she was very entrepreneurial. She would hack together little business schemes, go to a market, buy a bunch of kids' tapes, then go to the flea market and sell them. And
so it really would come from your mom a lot then.
Yeah, I would see her create these little dynamics. She opened to create opportunity for herself. She opened a little boutique inside of a local hair salon, things like that. She was always selling something.
So out of necessity, she did this, and
Correct.
then you kind of pick that up and learn from her.
I watched her do it my whole life, and she would just like hack together these quick businesses to really support us.
So let's talk about the first really big company you were involved in creating, Script Relief.
Yes.
So what was that company?
So Script Relief lowered the cost of prescription medications for the and underinsured. And so basically, it looked at the PBM industry, pharmacy benefit management industry, which actually a lot of people don't realize is who is negotiating and delivering your pharmacy benefits through your insurer. So most people don't realize when they flip their insurance card over, it's like it has numbers about doctors and care, and then it has a separate set of information about your pharmacy benefits. And that's because it's actually processed by an entirely different company that your insurer has actually partnered with to deliver those benefits to you. And what we did was actually negotiate those discounts on your prescription drugs on behalf of the underinsured population in the country, of which there's so many.
So you get a better deal for all these people.
Correct.
And then you had to market to them aggressively to get them to take the deal.
Exactly. And also we were actually giving them this product for free. So we would deliver this pharmacy discount card to them for free. They would just take it to their pharmacy with their prescription.
So you send out like how many, like billions
Even
of pieces of mail?
100 million packages a year in some years. And so really a high number of direct mail packages. We used to joke that we could just dump them out of planes.
What were some of the tricks you learned to reach these people?
Oh my gosh, this is actually, it's kind of my favorite exercise, and it's something I love to talk to our founders about, because founders, like that we work with, they love data, and a lot of times what they're looking at is like big sweeping information, right? The really loud pieces of information that they hear from their customer base. And actually where a lot of, I think, the best marketing tactics come from is the more quiet whispers, and then you can kind of follow those,
What does that mean? What's a quiet whisper?
So a good example of when we were building Script Relief is that we would market to, you were looking for a population that was on a lot of medications, right? So somebody who needed to fill a lot of medications that weren't insured. So a particular income and then a particular ailment. So take, for example, individuals who made less than $60,000 a year who were diabetics. Okay. I can buy profiles, right? We're all familiar with our data being sold, right? I can buy profiles of people who identify this way. My household income is here, and I have this particular ailment. Or I can look for them in sneakier, more interesting, complex ways. I'm a person who buys food-related gadgets from the television at 2 a.m. That's a much more interesting way to get to that same population, and it's an active customer. This is a person who's taken out a credit card, who's made a phone call.
Do you figure out the correlations that tie
Correct.
to these things?
Yes. And so what's basically, I would say to our founders even now, what's the weirdest way you can get to your exact customer? And that's probably also the most cost effective.
It forces you to be creative. And it's cost effective because if it's weird, other people aren't doing it.
Correct. If you're just looking for a diabetic that makes under $60,000 a year, that's a list you can buy. They're very, very expensive.
If you're just doing it on Google or Facebook at this point,
yes.
There's probably everyone else is doing that too.
Exactly. And so, but if you can figure out unique ways to get to that same person, and I always think there's a way and a cost to get to every single one of your customers. You just have to figure out what the most cost-effective path is to each individual customer.
So how big does Script Relief get as a business?
It's over $100 million a year in profit, and it's a small team, only 28 employees at the time, and it's a brilliant team of marketers, basically all marketers. And we did something really unique. We paired really young, high IQ team with super genius old school marketing talent. And so guys who had been in the business of direct mail for the previous 20, 30 years, partnered with an amazing girl, math student from Harvard.
I love that. So you get really smart people with new ideas, and then people who are experienced and can kind of help. So yeah, that's a combination we use a lot. Is the top talent who's younger, who's like dynamic, creating new things, and people who know how it works.
It's also a lot of, I think, a lot related to the thesis really you wrote around smart enterprise. How do you use the data from these incumbent businesses and partner with them, and then partner them with young gun companies who are employing the most modern technologies and building the most modern technologies to work together.
And so let's talk a little bit about the PBM industry in general, because you later ended up helping a lot when the Chaikin brothers started Blink Health, and we were early investors there. And so what's wrong with the PBM industry? Like what is it again, and then what needs to be fixed there?
Yeah, actually, I think the PBM space is like a perfect example of something that needs disrupting. And what I think is most interesting about this space is, we're so lucky we get to talk to a lot of the smartest minds, right, in investing, in entrepreneurs, et cetera, right? And it's rare to find in this group that they don't know about something. And the amount of times that we've had to explain or speak to amazing top investors, like market maker investors, about explaining what the PBM industry is.
Just the basics of this.
This is
a giant industry, right? I think there's 3 Fortune 20 companies,
yes.
So 3 of the biggest companies in our country.
In the world, yeah.
Are in there. It's a form of a middle-man between kind of the pharmaceutical companies and
the insurers.
And insurers.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone else who
and
buys
employers, I guess, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of triangulating. So pharmacy benefit managers literally are exactly that. They negotiate pricing on behalf of a particular population with the pharmaceutical companies on behalf of the insurers. And then the insurers basically farm out this entire area of negotiation.
Why do they make so much money? It seems like this, like you don't want middlemen making this much money. What's going on?
That's exactly right. That's what's broken, right? You look at these companies and you're like, this is literally a middleman negotiator between these two things. And they say they do a lot of things. They say they do safety checks. They say they do all of these different things to sort of support the expense, but it's really not.
But they're very profitable by sitting in the middle.
Wildly profitable, and also they're super bloated. They have tens of thousands of employees. These companies.
And what are some of their moats? Like why is it hard not to just build them and replace them because they're making so much profit? Because in capitalism and markets, something's making too much money for doing something doesn't seem that hard. We should build a competitor.
Right.
So what are the moats? Why is it hard?
So I think I think the moat is getting worse, not better, in the consolidation of healthcare, right? So this mass consolidation we're seeing across American healthcare, where you're seeing insurers align to pharmacy benefit managers and even pharmacies. So if you look at like CVS, right? It's like CVS Caremark is their PBM, and now Aetna. So you've got this real alignment that actually is not great, I think, for the American healthcare consumer, and really needs to be disrupted. It's kind of wild that the government lets this happen.
So CVS, which has a touch point with all these stores everywhere.
Correct.
They actually own the PBM that's making all the money. So that's
full alignment. Yeah.
Very profitable for them.
Amazingly profitable. Yeah.
So it'd be very hard to compete with their PBM as an example. How about others? Are there other areas?
And also, I actually think this is a really interesting. There's a really interesting point about this, which is all the time you hear Americans, close to you walking around complaining about big pharma, and what you hear them complaining about is big pharma. What they're actually complaining about that they don't know is big PBM and big pharmacy. It's like how many dollars are actually flowing profit-wise into CVS,
into
Walgreens,
those guys versus the guys who are owning and investing in the drugs.
Exactly, and the PBM, and so that's who's like actually setting pricing, setting list pricing, and all of that. And so I think that the American healthcare consumer is like really confused about who they're mad at because they don't even know the PBM exists
This
to be mad at.
This is a confusing industry.
Correct.
It's like there's the biotech companies and there's pharma, which are kind of like biotech companies, but they're much more like private equity guys sometimes because they're just buying,
acquiring drugs,
stuff and taking in there. And then there's the PBMs, there's the pharmacies, there's the health systems, there's the insurance companies.
A lot of people to be mad at.
I do this like for a living, and I could barely keep track of all of this.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah. We talk to the smartest, brightest minds, right? And then we're trying to explain to them this business that's obviously scaling, amazingly. And they're like, "And what does it do?" And you have to re-explain them this whole industry.
So
it's
it
really
seems like there's hundreds of billions of dollars of unnecessary kind of middleman expense going on in this area.
Bloating in the system.
We probably can't explain everything Blink Health does because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
But this has been one of your big investments from the very early on. It's now a unicorn growing really fast. Like, tell us a little bit about Blink Health.
So I'm obsessed with this business. Obviously, I've been obsessed with the problem for a long time. And, I think had we not had the prior experience understanding the PBM space, we probably would have never really understood the business well enough to invest in the first place. And so what they're actually doing is providing pharmacies that are outside of sort of the big few that we all kind of think of as a sort of American healthcare front door, with the types of loyalty program and services that.
So there's a long tail of pharmacies.
Yes.
Like, how many of these are there in the country?
Massive number of pharmacies. There's more pharmacies than McDonald's and Starbucks and all of these things put together. It's like.
And even on the long tail, there's
65,000
tens of
pharmacies.
thousands. Yeah.
There's a pharmacy, really within a 5-minute drive of like 90+% of Americans. It's like really, like if you just we're in New York City, if you just walk down the street on the same block, you'll find a CVS, a Walgreens, a Duane Reade, et cetera. And so I like to say we're overboxed in pharmacies. And so, Blink supports, I think, a lot of the amazing pharmacies that are more regional, local, and grocer pharmacies as well with this white labeled loyalty product that they have. But they also help match better branded medications with the right patients and help doctors prescribe them better, because there's a lot of, I'm sure you've had this experience, you get prescribed a drug, you need to go through this whole prior auth process of your insurer has to sign off on these things. I actually think the real like problem with that process of prior auth and how your insurance company and the PBM work to manage your formulary, the drugs you're allowed to fill using your insurance, is that you actually have actuaries, finance people making decisions about healthcare.
Which is kind of crazy in
It's
some
crazy.
ways. Yeah.
It's crazy. If you were to explain this to aliens, they'd be like, "Wait, what happened?"
Why are the actuaries trying to determine what medicines you're allowed
Correct.
to take? And they have to on some level because you have to afford it all, but you probably should be doing that in a more data-driven way around the efficacy and other issues.
100%.
And so you're helping with loyalty programs. You're helping automatically approve
or
people,
almost
the doctors,
automatically, yeah.
with
approve.
blanks, so
And
it's faster.
Using technology instead of fax machines, which is literally how prior auth is still done. Fax machines and human beings.
And it's getting people the best price available versus a lot of times PPMs have huge markups. Like
Huge
things
markups.
cost like 3-4 times as much sometimes, right?
Correct.
With some
Well,
of these.
even more, thousands of times more. So
Thousands of times more. There's
Yes.
examples of like a generic equivalent
that's
medicine.
free for you that because it's on your
Because you're on your thing, you might have paid
Correct.
$1,000.
It's
That's crazy.
Pharmaceuticals are really the only product that like if you and me and like a homeless person were to all walk into the same pharmacy with the same prescription from the same doctor, would all pay a different price for. Let's say you have like the best insurance, your gold-plated health insurance, you pay $10. I have like slightly less good health insurance, I pay $30. He pays $1,000 for the same drug.
This is like going to McDonald's to get a Big Mac, and we each have a different cost. And this is how it works right now.
Correct.
And
And
it's-
so
yeah.
and the worst part is that person who's likely to pay a higher price is definitely lower income, right? Because of how the dynamics of
This
insurance
was kind of the mission
work.
you got into in the first place, is helping
Yes.
people save money, helping people negotiate. So the Blink mission.
Democratizing access is like really the mission.
That's cool.
How do you democratize access
Take
to
a
this
super complicated
necessity?
industry. You're helping figure out the incentive of different players,
Correct.
getting people better deals.
Yeah, and I also think I'll just like add one thought, which is one of the most, I think, interesting things about following data in particular in healthcare is looking at where the profit pools are, right? So particularly in healthcare, I think if you asked anybody, they would never get these numbers right, and I try it all the time. Like, what do you think percentage-wise pharma is in revenue in healthcare? Most people would, not realize it's about 13%. But profits in
Profits is
healthcare,
higher than that, yeah.
do you know the number?
It's probably close to half.
It's half, exactly. It's like 49, 50%, exactly. And so that's wild to be 13%
It's
of
it's a higher margin business, though. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, I think I'm always like shocked by that number, and also how many people get it wrong that are really brilliant people.
Supposedly they're working in the industry and they don't really know
Correct.
how it works.
Yeah.
Well,
Doctors never know. It's my favorite thing to ask doctors.
They have no idea
never
where
know.
the money is,
They also
yeah.
think all the drugs are made in America. Always doctors think drugs are made in. I love to quiz them. I was with an amazing OB last night looking at his company, and I asked him where he thought drugs were made because I've been like recently stocking up on generics that I think are going to be hard to get, and he was like, "Well, why? Everything's made here. American drugs are made here because of the FDA," and I'm like, "Wrong. It's like a fraction of drugs are made here, actually."
we actually do regulate other places like in India, too.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you on that, just for our listeners. You're a little worried some drugs may be harder to get.
Yeah.
What are a few that you're stocking up on just in case? Not that we want to cause a run on these.
Don't cause a run on. We're actually seeing this actually. So the pediatric Cillins are already harder to find right now, but they're also hard to keep because it's a liquid drug, right? So they go bad in 2 weeks,
yeah.
right?
Or
But if
2
you could
weeks.
get
Well,
the
you probably
powder-
can't stock up on those.
You get the powder, then you could save it. But I like to keep on hand since the start of COVID, big gun antibiotics. So like your top 6 drugs that are like could be
Just in
life-saving.
case have some antibiotics, some
Yeah.
other things. Actually, we do that as well. I
Yeah.
don't talk about it usually in public because people think it's weird. But
Yeah, it's weird. It's
you know,
weird because
but
you're like so you get into
don't trust the supply chain fully with
No, we
everything
can't-
going on.
We know a lot about the supply chain at HPC these days, and so yes, you can definitely not trust it.
That's
You
funny.
can't even get a couch right now.
That's funny you're doing that too.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about another business. It's very different. We move
Yeah.
on from PBMs,
Yeah.
which is, and I wanted to start with PBMs so people could see all the sophisticated things we work on. There's different levels of, I guess, complexity and sophistication on the consumer side.
Yeah.
I do not understand this world. You obviously do understand this world quite well. You were the first big investor in Hell House Home, which
Yes.
I guess they're most famous for their nap dresses.
Yes, they are, and I'm wearing. If you can, I don't know if the camera can see it, but I'm wearing my Hill House dress today. Fun fact, and I love this fact because I think if you're going to invest in consumer, you have to really be a consumer of these things too. Long before we were their investor, I was their number one customer, so I really saw the value prop. I've been their running number one customer for a very long time, I was recently told. And so it's a really
You buy all of their stuff.
Every single thing. The best part was when we were doing diligence on the Series A. So Nell, the CEO of Hill House Home and founder of Hill House Home, has twins. I have twins. They're about 8 weeks apart. Hers are in October and mine are born on New Year's Eve. And we did the Series A between her twins and my twins. So it was really...
She led the round between her twins being born and your twins being born.
Her term sheet got to her.
So you two women are crazy people.
Crazy people. I was like trying to give her time, and then I realized that my twins were going to come sooner than we thought.
So you had to get the term sheet out.
We got her the term sheet. I was on the way to the hospital on December 30th, and then the boys came the next day.
And how much has it grown as a company since due to that investment?
Yeah, so this is amazing, actually. When we got to know Nell and the Hill House Home brand early on, it was a home brand. So there was no apparel at this time. Wow. And we watched the business growing, and just from the sidelines, we stayed friends. We would catch up once a quarter, get a coffee, and she'd tell me about the business. And then I started seeing this interesting phenomenon. She made a pajama dress called the nap dress. It's the shape I'm wearing now. It's called the Ellie, in a white cotton, basically see-through cotton, right? It's like a nap. It's a nightgown at this time. And we start seeing this dress at brunch on the streets of New York, walking around. And I'm like, it's very interesting. People wearing their pajamas outside, and people start wearing this thing as a dress. She releases it a season later in a more opaque fabric in a tartan. Still everyone's favorite nap dress, even today. And then we start seeing the numbers go absolutely wild. And so I call Nell and I'm like, I think it's time for us to give you money. And so she actually was not, any of the times that she raised capital, she was actually not raising capital. They were times that because we were, in the business with her, or because we were getting information from her, from a friendly perspective and just kind of lending an ear and some expertise, that we said, actually, it's time for you to do this. It's time for you to do the seed. It's time for you to do the Series A. It's time for you to do the Series B. And so the business has grown enormously. So at that point, it was a home business. The clothing part of the business was tiny because it was really one shape of nightgown at the time. Then she does the second release in tartan. We see it spike. She basically sold out, and I think it was at the time 18 minutes or something like that.
They did these drops. This is the thing that maybe some men know about this.
Yes.
I know because you're invested in it, because my wife buys from it. These drops come and they sell like how many dresses will they sell in a drop?
Yeah,
so drops when there's a chance to buy
a new release. So a lot of men who probably listen to the show know about things like Supreme that do a drop, right? So they drop once a week, but then they do bigger lines every now and then as well. Hill House drops last year 6 times, but this year is going to be 4. So we're going to actually tighten up the drops.
Times.
Yes, we're actually create fewer. Actually, there will be
fewer
more
bigger
products offered, but fewer bigger drops. So that what we find is the customer really wants to plan around her wardrobe around these drops, and so we're basically tightening them up to help her plan that way.
But how long do you have to
year.
order when it drops?
Minutes. And so this is the most amazing thing. We'll have 30,000 nap dress customers. We call them the nap queens, in the nap room, which is almost a QVC style selling component to what Nell does. So she's on screen styling and talking about each item, showing how she's going to wear it, showing how it fits for half an hour. And it's the most wonderful place because you've got this really supportive, obsessed customer base. One of the publications, I forget which, called it the cult of the nap dress, because it really is. They went around interviewing these girls, and they have my closet, I think, probably has upwards of 50 of these dresses. But even a regular customer has at least 6, right? So they have tons of this same dress in all different prints or different cuts, right? And so they get really obsessed with this product. And so you basically have somewhere between 1 minute and half an hour, depending on the popularity of the product.
You just got to order it right away, and they'll sell tens of thousands of them.
Tens of thousands, yeah.
I mean, it just like, how did you do this? Cause I do merchandising drops for American Optimists. like how does this work?
You probably could. I wouldn't put it past you.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be pretty
It's
cool.
just like really cool stuff that everyone that likes.
You know, actually, I think what it is she's so core to her customer base, right? She's like
It's about now.
It's about It's about her. It's about it's about an accessible luxury. I think she's exactly at the right price point with a product that is easy fit, right? These dresses have no zipper. We call them easy waist dresses. They are machine washable. Even I'm wearing lace. I throw it in the washing machine and hang dry it. It's amazing. And the price point's amazing, right? So like this dress, $175, a collector's item dress. The regular dress, $150. And so it's an amazing price product. So I think it's the right product at the right price point for the right customer.
And you're going to do over 100 million revenue, and you can't say, I guess.
Yeah, she won't. I don't think she'll let me. I don't think she'll like me for releasing. She gets to 100
That's totally
million.
fine. She want people thinking about the design, not the money. That's totally fair. But it's amazing. So you obviously have an eye for consumer. You've done some great consumer investments that grew 100x after you did them, and you decided to build your own company in consumer.
Yes, I did.
And it's called, and so we have a build program, and I think you studied this space for a long time. We said, we could pay $30 million to buy a few percent of one of our favorite technical skincare companies. Actually, let's use the money instead, and let's build something better.
Yeah. So this actually, I think the Fig One beauty story is actually a great example of how our build program works, and also why I think it's such an amazing platform to be on if you're an entrepreneur and an investor, right? So I think I'm obsessed with skincare. I've always been obsessed with skincare. And since I'm like 11 years old, basically, my mom gave me my first Clinique Yellow Cream, which you don't know what it is, but every woman listening definitely knows what it is. And she, that really like spun me off on like a whole lifetime of being a skincare enthusiast. And then as I started getting older, I started looking at all of the anti-aging and active skincare products, whether it was lights and lasers, injectables, or topicals. And I really think for me, a lot of the way I like to, treat my skin and try to keep it younger, glowy, or longer is through topicals. And so we started studying the space. And so I went out looking for an investment. Like you said, we looked at over 100 companies in the space and found actually something that I found it's like so horrible as a skincare consumer is like a lot of snake oil, honestly.
There's a lot of people out there, they're making money by tricking consumers.
Marketing, exactly. Just marketing, saying that this is gonna fix your fine lines and wrinkles, and then when you drill down into the ingredients, they're actually not potent enough to do anything really.
Well, this is interesting because you are really good at marketing and all the tricks to marketing, but you don't want to market something that's not substantive.
Correct. I would never market something that I couldn't actually stand behind. And I really feel like that as an investor, as a builder, and especially obviously as a consumer. But
it's a form of integrity, basically.
Yes, exactly.
You're not going to give your life to something that you don't really believe in.
Correct. And I also just in general believe consumers are incredibly smart. A lot of companies, I think, treat consumers like they're dumb, but actually consumers are wildly intelligent and they're really good at finding the best thing naturally. It's why you see so many things grow organically to become really successful companies. It takes longer, but these consumers are very good at telling each other when something really works being obsessed. So
it sounds like you're bullish on our democracy, huh? You think people can figure things out eventually?
I do. I think they can figure it. I'm in general optimistic. We're on American Optimist, everybody. So I'm in general optimistic, but I also I really believe in the intelligence of the consumer and the consumers becoming smarter and smarter, especially in this area.
So you brought on people from Stanford,
Harvard,
Penn, and these are dermatologists, you're experts. And I remember it took you a while to get the right supply chain and ingredients. What did that take? And what did you find out?
Yeah. So we went through this process of seeing over 100 companies to get to the point where we decided we couldn't write a check. I was like, I can't stand behind literally any of this. And then we decided to build this company. So then along the way of meeting all of those companies, I also met all the top experts, the head of Harvard Derm, Stanford Derm, Penn Derm, amazing chemists. And I brought all those people together and I gave them the thesis that Bella Becerra, who works on our team, and I wrote about technical skincare. What ingredients matter in anti-aging and acne and sun care, et cetera. And I said, if you were to put together a full-fledged collection of anti-aging products, what does it look like? I gave them I made no demands about costs. I didn't say, oh, it's a luxury brand or it's accessible or whatever. I said, what does it look like percentage-wise in active ingredients and such? The Dr. Courtney Rubin, who at the time was practicing at Harvard, and Lizzie Trelstad, our head of chemistry out of Columbia, came together and they brought us a list of products. It was 8 products. That was the 8 launch products. We wrote every single one of those ingredient lists on our own and created all of those products on our own. I say that, and almost everybody I think probably is going, yeah, of course, doesn't everybody just create their own skincare products? It's actually not how products get created.
Most of them have someone else do their back end and they just market it.
Correct. They just go to a co-manufacturer who makes all the skincare products. They take something off a shelf, you put your own label on it, and you put it out.
Well, celebrities always want to launch their own things. They just go to someone. They're not going to do all the work you did with Stanford and Harvard.
Yes.
They just want to put their name on something.
Exactly. And the thing that they also don't do, which we do, is clinical testing. So we go through full-blown clinical testing on all of our products. And I make the point about price that I didn't give them any direction on the price point of the product, because most people don't realize it actually doesn't matter. The juice that's in the bottle
It's not that expensive.
is not that expensive. And so products that you're spending $100, $200, $300, $1,200 on.
Are there $1,200 products out there?
Correct. La Mer has $1,200 skincare products. There are actually more than one company that have them, and they're not really.
What are they putting in there? Is this like celebrities like hair or something? Like what are they doing?
You wish. We actually do see some really weird ingredients in skincare these days. There's like placenta products.
Oh, come on, that's gross.
Actually, like a big thing in skincare right now is oh my god, it's like colostrum. They're using bovine colostrum in skincare, which if you have babies, is what comes before breast milk, basically. It's bonding fluid. And so I'm like, how are you guys getting this stuff? And so anyway, I don't want to know. But it's really interesting when I started understanding the dynamics about cost in these products, I'm like, oh, we can create the best-in-class products that I'm currently at that time spending hundreds of dollars a bottle for my 12-step skincare routine. So I'm spending thousands of dollars on skincare.
Just spending thousands of dollars, you can take all the very best-in-class ingredients and you can put them in something that, and you're selling it. It's a very, very high-end product, but it's inexpensive enough that you're selling it at
it's $14 to $40.
You're selling it at like Walmart.
Yes, yeah, we're on Walmart.com. We're launching 3,000 CVS stores in March 23. Yeah,
we shouldn't talk about their PBM stuff.
Sorry, guys. I think it's probably a different team.
Good.
Nobody be mad at me. But I think they're actually think CVS is doing a lot to change the way that America is experiencing healthcare. So I think even though I have like challenges,
there are positive sides to it as well.
I think ultimately, there are positive.
And they're able
force.
to innovate by having something close to there.
And they're really creating, I think, a new team to build out what's possible.
Well, keep saying good things about them if they're selling in 3,000 stores, Kimmy.
Correct.
So that's at least this is business.
But also, I think it's like, why CVS, why Walmart? Like, you could easily sell these are high price. These products are high quality.
Around the world, other countries trying to sell your stuff too.
Yes,
it's really cool.
Yeah, we're gonna be a global. We'll be a global brand next year. We'll launch in Australia. We'll launch in the UK.
And it's just kind of interesting because just like Nell sells her brand, I guess this brand is partially about you. People seem to respond to you yourself.
Yeah, it's actually very funny because we went through all of these processes to like work with celebrity influencers, whatever, and then we're on a marketing call and our marketing team is like, yeah, there's this girl who's talking about your product in this Instagram post is performing 10x better than these other celebrity Instagram posts, and I'm like, what girl are they talking about? And they pull the ad. I'm like, this is me. That's me. And I think it's really funny because I think it's about authenticity in marketing. And people, this is what I mean about consumers. They're really good at picking out bullshit. And so I think it's really easy for them to see, oh, this is not really believable and this is actually really authentic. And when obviously I'm obsessed with this brand and product and really with this team, and we put our heart and soul into building the products, and I try and test everything. Like I work on every single product.
So it's just more real when you do it. And you said people could tell. And just so why is it viable for founders in general to have an engaged AVC partner on build? Like what is that process, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So I actually think it's an amazing process because once we have this like belief system and thesis built around an area, I would argue that there are not better experts than in that space once we like really dig in with our team. And so I think we're seeing it from a different place than like a founder in the trenches actually, and able to experience all of these different companies, this a whole industry.
Yeah, a lot of the frameworks from doing this a lot of times seem to get reused a lot.
Yes, exactly. And so I think being in the trenches with the founder that way, with the other co-founders in the business that way, is highly valuable.
So you've coached and mentored a lot of founders. Is there any certain counsel you tend to give more often to first-time founders? I mean, there's so many things, but like what stands out as like common mistakes you want to help them avoid?
Yeah, actually, it's so funny because I wonder what you'll think of this, because I think it's probably like a little bit anti-VC maybe, but one of the things that founders want, they're like a bit want to understand like a formula, and I'm like, this is not a Michael Bay movie. Like your idea and is actually what's really important here, and then how we execute is really important. But you can't it's not formulaic, right?
Yeah,
like every single time.
You got to kind of iterate. I agree. There's gaps in the world. There's lots of smart people.
Yes.
And then there's like frameworks, but you're iterating all the time.
Exactly. And I think so. I think what is the same is that you have to understand, you collect, understand, and then use all the data that you have, right? And so I think being a fast learner and being able to quickly adjust and pivot as the world is changing around you, because none of us are on solid ground, right? We thought we knew everything until 2 years ago,
and you're constantly
and COVID
adjusting,
happened.
and everything is different.
Everything's
and now all of a
different.
sudden you have changed totally how you're selling. So I mean, how do you think about talent and building a culture that attracts and retains top talent? Because it's that talent that's doing the iterating and figuring it out.
100%. So I think people really want to work on some meaningful problems. And so I think you have to find talent that's interested in the problem you're solving, not just the solution or the company that you're building, but actually the problem itself. And if they're in love with that, then you'll get a team that's really passionate and powerful together. I think a lot of people go to companies for the wrong reasons. It's like, oh, this is like the sexy thing right now, so I want to work on it, but they don't really care about the problem. And so I think if you can solve for that and look for people who, really share that obsession, then you'll build a really amazing team.
Awesome. So Kimmy, we started American Optimist to push back against the cynicism and pessimism sweeping across the country. What are the best reasons to be optimistic about the future of America?
I feel like this is such a good question, because I really, in a lot of ways, feel like a good example of somebody living the American dream, right? My mom came here as a child from Italy. All of my grandparents said are all born in Italy, and with very little. And I'm here, helping you shape the future, investing in the best technology companies.
Well, hopefully we're helping you.
Yeah, but together we're doing it together, and I think that's amazing. And so I hear this all the time. People love saying how they're going to move to Canada or something right now, especially the younger generation, right? They're like obsessed with that. Oh, the world is like everything's broken.
What would you tell these young people? There's a lot of people young people who think the world's broken and just basically think business is evil, and then business is just to take advantage of people, and the whole world's greedy and horrible. Like, what would you tell these people?
Yeah, I say, you see a lot of things that are broken. I see a lot of things that you can fix. And so I think when I'm talking to young people, I'm like, listen, all of these problems that you see, it's there's never been a better time to solve them than now, right? You get to deploy all of the last 30, 40 years of technologies that exist and call upon those and build with whatever technologies are possible today that were not possible in that time. So you get to leverage all of this information that you have and all of these things, coupled with everything that's new, focus on the modern problems that we have to fix those things. And that's your responsibility. And so when people are complaining about how everything is broken and you can't fix it,
it's actually an opportunity.
Yeah, I hear laziness. And so I'm like,
step up and get it done and start fixing it.
Exactly.
That's a great note to end it on. Kimmy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So fun.